Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is some strange things that I see happening at the Rudakubana Southport inquiry. Now, what's happening here is either the inquiry's taking a strange avenue or the reporting of it is taking a strange avenue, where there seems to be quite a push to tell us that Rudakubana was not actually an Islamic fundamentalist, but the complete opposite. There appears to be quite a push for us to understand that he was actually anti-Islamic, which is weird for a guy that was found with the Al-Qaeda training manual in his possession. But we've to take away from the inquiry that that's not the case, that he was actually a anti-Islamist, which is a very strange turn of events. Now, I need to explain that this is a Sky News report on the inquiry that happened yesterday. This report is a day old. And it's fascinating reading, because it's either given us an interesting insight into the levels taken by the inquiry to steer us off in an angle, or they've been selective in the reporting of the inquiry, which may be more open-minded than they've reported. And I can't make my mind up. But I'm kind of puzzled by the direction both appear to be taking. Because you'll see even from the headline here on Sky that they home in this full day of the inquiry, and their headline has been created to say Southport killer Axel Rudakubana had anti-Islamic material. Inquiry into stabbings told. So that's the most important thing that they see out that whole day's hearing. They want to tell the world that Axel Rudakubana was anti-Islamic. That's a big claim. And it kind of doesn't stand up when you dissect the article, which I'll do now. And there's two, one that comes out quite early and one about halfway through the article, which are quite big claims and give you an idea on what you're meant to believe as the reader of the article. So what they say is tablets and books showed Rudakubana was interested in religion and conflict and had fascinations with violence and inappropriate material. Despite that, the killer was not somebody who was motivated by any particular religion, racial hatred, or matters of that kind. So again, we're only the second paragraph in, and they're telling us that this boy wasn't motivated by any particular religion. He didn't have any fascination with any. So don't you be thinking he's pro anything. But at the same time, they're telling him he's anti something, which is quite peculiar. Anyway, the Southport killer, now this is third paragraph in, possessed large amounts of anti-Islamist material including cartoons Muslims would find highly offensive. The inquiry into the killings is held, although they provide no details of what these cartoons may be that Muslims may or may not find highly offensive. The family of the killer believed his fascination with violence came from an interest in studying history, the hearing was told. Alice Aguirre, 9, B.B. King, 6, and Elsie Stancombe, 7, were killed at a Taylor Swift themed dance on the 29th of July last year by Axel Rudakubana, who has been jailed for a minimum of 52 years. An examination of 2 tablet devices used by Rudakubana, referred to as AR at the hearing, was outlined to the inquiry and included PDF documents suggestive of violence and interest in religion and conflict, Nicholas M. Moss KC, who's a counsel to the inquiry, said. So this is a guy that's delivering the evidence on behalf of the inquiry, right? So he's giving them legal advice here. And isn't that interesting that he's saying right away it suggestive of an interest in religion? But we're told that he didn't. So what's the truth here? He either is or he isn't, and we're only 4 or 5 paragraphs in now, and it's been contradicted. Some were in the form of academic textbooks, but even those appeared to deal with war and conflict, while others were more extreme and related to overt violence, Mr. Moss added. However, the case was never taken over by counter-terrorism police because Rudakubana had a fascination with violence and inappropriate material, but was not somebody who was motivated by any particular religion, racial hatred, or matters of that kind, Mr. Moss said. Now that's a bit bizarre because he's trying to suggest that the counter-terrorism was not taken over. Now, not taken over and being involved are two totally separate things. Now, as I proved at the time, days after the murder, the lead police officer in the case thanked counter-terrorism for their help so far and their continued help in the case. So they were involved with the case. And Mr. Moss doesn't contradict that. All he says is they never took over the case, which again is two separate things. The documents included an interest in the fight against ISIS in Mosul, the Russian Republic of Chechnya, Nazi Germany, the Zulu War in South Africa in 1879, punishments dealt to slave rebels, and a book in Japanese ninja, as well as the Rwandan genocide, where Rudakubana's parents were born. So again, the first thing they mention, out of all those types of weird things, is that the materials against ISIS, again, leading us to believe that he is somehow anti-Islamic. Detective Chief Inspector Jason Pye, the senior investigating officer, said, AR clearly had an interest in numerous wars and violence. The majority of these were quite extreme in the title or in the material found within them. There was also a number of JPEG images related to the slavery of the women and anti-Islamic material. In total, police collected 247 pages of relevant images not consistent with a young man who had come across a highly inappropriate image during the course of other searches by accident, Mr. Moss said. So the KC for the inquiry is telling us that these were deliberate. It was not as if he stumbled across things, right? He told the inquiry after this attack there may have been suggestions and speculations about this attack being what might be described as an Islamist attack. This bit's very important. He then seems to be guiding the witness to say something. Is it right that the anti-Islamic material found on AR's devices was quite voluminous? That is correct. There was, DCI Pye said. But quite voluminous could mean one of two things. You could suggest that 10 out of the almost 300 stuff that they got is voluminous. So is 296. But he's not asked them, is it the majority of? So we're left, though, with unspecific words to believe that this boy was in some way anti-Islamic. There was also anti-Semitic material and imagery of victims of the Nazis and the Twin Towers, which were subject to 9/11 attacks by Al-Qaeda. Now, if you've got images of victims of attacks at Twin Towers, that could be you were pro-Al-Qaeda or not. Doesn't really suggest much, but it is worth considering that you could find these enjoyable. Rudakubana has used several VPNs on an older tablet device to disguise his location. The device included documents on warfare and weaponry, including references to nitroglycerine, dynamite, electronic detonators, future warfare, and the influence of hypersonic weapons. But we've suggested earlier on that this was not in some way any terror thing. I would suggest anybody into nitroglycerin, dynamite and electronic detonators is most definitely a terrorist. We just need to establish what side of terror they're on, but a terrorist nonetheless. There was also 2 documents that referred to mental health treatment of young people, including those from diverse communities. On the 30th of August and the 4th of September 2021, Rudakubana downloaded a 190-page document titled Military Studies in Jihad Against the Tyrants, commonly referred to as the Al-Qaeda Training Manual. believed to believe this boy was anti-Islamic. The inquiry was told that the last of 3 referrals to prevent de-radicalised scheme provoked a concern about violent material he'd been viewing at school was closed in May 2021. Rudakubana ordered the knife he used on the attack in Amazon 2 weeks earlier. The inquiry was told Amazon said there was a form of age verification. Rudakubana used his father's details, which then tallied with the electoral roll, and it was sufficient to pass the age verification. And then it talks about the thing that we already knew, and that was his dad may have stopped an attack at his school a week earlier where he stopped him in a taxi. He'd got into a taxi, his dad believed he had a weapon on him and begged the taxi driver not to take him, and that didn't happen. And his father believes that he may have prevented an attack then. Now, I find this a bit bizarre. Now, we've got loads of issues here. He was referred to CAMS, he was referred to prevent, and none of them seen the error of this young lad's ways. However, I find the most peculiar, and here's what I want to do. I'll put a wee bet on me, if anybody wants to take me up on it. Wee charity bet, so to speak. Let's make it £100. And anybody that wants to match it, I'll take the first one in the comments that wants to match this. I'll make a suggestion that come the end of this trial, it's heavily stated that Rudakubana was anti-Islamic and in no way Islamic whatsoever. That's where this bit's going. And the reason for me saying that is quite simply the bit about the Casey, who goes back to the police officer to almost put words in his mouth by saying, is it right that the anti-Islamic material on AR's device was quite voluminous? That is correct. Yes, there was. What he didn't seem to do is follow up by asking the 190-page document, which is referred to as a jihadi training manual. Is that voluminous? That seems to just be there and not taken any further. So if anybody's willing to take my bet, we'll do a £100 charity bet. And I suggest, and I predict, that come the end of this hearing, which isn't until November, I don't know how long it will take to actually compile the findings, but there'll be many suggestions in it, confirmed by police officers under questioning by the panel's KC, that Rudakubana was in some way anti-Islamic and not pro-Islamic. If you want others to see this video, hit a like, hit share and put your comments below. If you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. However, the most important thing of all, unless you're the type of person that wants to tell us that this boy had no interest in any specific religions, despite obvious documents to consider otherwise, then not you. But everyone else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.